And now it's time to bring in Jeff Small. Well, Jeff, it's another Sunday, another week's gone by. How was your week?
Dave, it was great. Did you see all those groupers I caught over the weekend?
You know, I did actually. I'm jealous. There were some big ones too. They looked like they were 50 pounds plus. So good for you. Beginning of the season. I love it. Take advantage of it.
Oh yeah. Got to do it again.
Great. And of course, one thing that we're to take advantage of here, I know you're excited about this, one of your favorite guests, is our first guest filled with knowledge, and that's our good friend, Dr. Laurence Kotlikoff, an economist and a professor at Boston University. He's also president of Maxify, which you can find at maxify.com. Maxify is a personal financial planner. Dr. Kotlikoff, thanks so much for being back with us here on The Income Generation.
Great to be back with you guys. Always have a good time with you guys.
Absolutely, Dr. Kotlikoff. So, we're looking into retirement today in today's show, and we know that majority of retirees have not saved enough for retirement, and some have. What type of problems does that propose for society overall over time?
Well, Jeff, I think you're absolutely right. I think the typical baby boomer is showing up with like $150,000 or less in savings and assets. So they've got Social Security, they've got their house, and they've got this small amount of money. And it's hard to get by because you could live longer than you think. You're not going to die necessarily on time. Everybody thinks they're going to die young because they don't want to jinx themselves into thinking they're going to die late. So they, for whatever reason, people aren't saving nearly enough. And many people may end up living being retired longer than they actually worked. So this is a big drag on the economy insofar as, if you have a lot of poor older people, it affects their spending. You need to bail them out. We already have a big burden we're leaving for our kids, an enormous burden. And now we're talking about even more transfers from the young to the old. So lots of implications for society. This is a major problem, having the boomers in such financial straits as a group. And
another problem, Dr. Kotlikoff, is that the stock markets are at record highs, all-time highs. And so over the next 5 years, do you think that's going to be more challenging for folks to have their assets grow or create income for retirees and near retirees?
Yeah, it's hard for an economist to predict anything, let alone the stock market. Clearly it's a global economy, but there's all kinds of global threats. So I could say, well, look, the stock market's going up, but it could keep going. It can keep going up, and the U.S. We could get out of this pandemic, and everything could. People could hope to get the same 6.5% real return on the market that has occurred historically. But the stock market's highly volatile, as you guys know, so it's very risky. And then we got the bond market that's yielding, in real terms, after inflation, essentially nothing if you buy a long-term treasury bond. And then the chances are that interest rates will go up, so that if you buy a nominal treasury bond, you'll suffer a capital loss. So it's a very tough time to invest. I think people need to certainly pay off their debts, and paying off their mortgage is probably the best way to invest right now.
Yeah, because a dollar saved is a dollar earned. So it's that simple. Like Bear Bryant said, defense wins football games. So Dr. Kotlikoff, right after the break, I want to come back and I want to pick your brains a little bit about the economy to see how strong you really feel the economy is. So stay with us, please.
So I want to welcome back Dr. Laurence Kotlikoff, good friend of the Income Generation. And of course, I'm Jeff Small with David Scranton. So Dr. Kotlikoff, tell us what the first thing somebody should do is who's nearing retirement and evaluating their own Social Security strategies.
Well, I think they want to rethink retiring. If they're the typical baby boomer, they're the people that are retiring these days because of their age. You really want to work as long as you possibly can, and you want to delay taking Social Security to 70, if at all possible. If you need to get benefits for your disabled child, or for a spouse taking care of the child, or for a spouse who has a low earnings record, you can certainly, it may behoove you to take your benefits earlier, but in general, you want to wait till 70 to take your retirement benefit because it's going to be so much higher adjusted for inflation. It's like 76% higher than it if you take it at 62. So basically you want to, we talked at the beginning about, the fact we've got so many baby boomers in so much financial trouble. Going back to work and delaying retirement is really the safest thing to do. Making sure they aren't spending too much on housing, trying to downsize, move to a place that's cheaper in terms of taxes, in terms of cost of living, getting a sure return by paying off mortgages that are charging above what you can earn by investing safely, because mortgages, all that stuff.
Dr. Kotlikoff, thanks so much for being back with us here on The Income Generation. As usual, it's been our pleasure.
My pleasure.
In fact, something we'll be asking our next guest about, and that is Stuart Chamberlin, president of Chamberlin Financial, located in Boca Raton, Florida. Stuart, thanks so much for being here with us on The Income Generation.
Thank you for having me.
Stuart, do you find that the people that you work with this year in particular are concerned about these new stock market peaks and the market's potential for crashing or going up?
Well, absolutely. I mean, when you look at where we're at right now with the S&P being up in the last 12 months, about 45% or so, the actual GDP that we're expecting this next year is because of an event, because of the actual economy opening like it has, and also the fact that there's been so many trillions of dollars printed, throughout the world banks, throughout the world, and especially here in the United States, being thrown in the economy. There's not a lot of fundamentals affecting or causing the market to be where it's at. So a lot of it is not based on actual fundamentals, but it's based on the fact that there's a tremendous amount of money being printed and there's a lot of debt associated with each one of those dollars.
So yeah, I've seen a lot of people really concerned about that, and a lot of people actually coming into my office for the first time, Stuart, that are in cash and they're petrified to do anything because of the valuations being so stretched, and all of that monetary stimulus is absolutely crazy. Dave, what do you think?
Yeah, there's reason to be cautious right now, right? But also, we've seen this before. We've seen times like this before. I always tell people not to panic, to stay focused on their goals and to make sure that their strategy really fits their goals. So, in the final minute here, what would you say, Stuart, is your best advice for those that are watching, that are listening to The Income Generation, that you feel like they need to have a grasp on if they're retired or within 10 years of retirement?
Well, you want to stay, focused and principled, and use, of course, a qualified advisor that knows how to, work with them as far as creating a guaranteed income stream for life. The one thing that they should do is, consider the, shifting their mindset, like we talked about before, about from being focused for so many years on accumulating and growth, to focus on the income, the I. And not so much on growth like they have in the past. Now, there's so many different ways of doing that. You have, things that have guarantees of income. You have things that, different fixed income instruments that will produce true interest that they can depend on a monthly or annual.
But the first step, Stuart, is making that philosophical shift. And if it's a shift you've never made, that's why you need an income specialist, because an income specialist like yourself is in some ways a psychologist, a coach, to get them through this all so important stage of life.
Correct.
So thanks so much, Stuart. We appreciate your words of wisdom as usual.
Thank you.
And our next guest, in spite of the fact that he's from a very liberal state, will tell us that you can't spend principal. It's all about the income, a very conservative financial strategy. And that's income specialist Anthony Saccaro. He's an attorney, and he's also the president of Providence Financial, a retirement income store located just outside of LA. Anthony, as usual, it's great to have you with us today.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Anthony, I'm glad you're on the show today. I love interviewing you because you're so smart on this kind of stuff. So tell us what investors, pre-retirees, retirees don't understand when you first start to educate them about passive income?
Well, I think the primary concern that I have with most investors is they've never made a transition from investing for how to get to retirement to actually investing in retirement. And the challenge is if you're invested in stocks and mutual funds, like most people are heading towards retirement, it becomes a guessing game in retirement because you have no idea what your portfolio is going to be worth in a year or 2 or 3 from now. And that what it forces them to do is retirement guessing instead of retirement planning. That's the biggest concern I have for most people that come in to see us.
Understood, understood. So it's really hard for them to make that transition. So tell us how you transitioned them from a growth perspective. They've got this habit of accumulation their entire life, and now they've got to change their financial habits. How do you bridge that?
Well, I think the transition comes purely from knowledge. Most people do not know that there is a whole universe of options out there that are designed to give you interest and dividends. Most people are just not aware of that because the entire world of Wall Street seems geared towards helping individuals grow their money. There are very few institutions and individuals and no marketing about how individuals can actually get income. So once you educate them, the light bulb goes on and they instantly realize that it makes a lot of sense. It's purely education, Jeff.
So Anthony, why do you think our financial culture, our financial industry is so dogmatic about growth? That growth is the only answer they have, and you can't eat growth in retirement, especially when the market drops.
Oh, absolutely. I think the reason that they're so dogmatic about it is because mutual funds are phenomenal for growth, and mutual funds are going to charge you some type of residual fee, oftentimes between 1% and 2% a year, and mutual funds for income don't work. And it's all boils down to the money. The fact that mutual funds are great for growth and you can make a lot of money, that really is the reason why the growth message is predominant and why the income message is just not out there. If you can do income through mutual funds, it would be out there.
So Anthony, it's been our pleasure as usual. It's been great having you on the show.
Thank you for having me.